Catus, Maximus here. This time with the full teardown of this 0234 half-inch Magnum hole shooter from Milwaukee. Not my favorite drill. These are certainly awesome drills, but this is probably not one I'm going to keep, so I probably won't be reassembling and will be recycling the components of this Milwaukee. Several reasons. One is on this one, the trigger, and I've seen this on many of these. The potentiometer inside the trigger goes out and you don't get your variable speed anymore. I will take apart the trigger to see how that works. The one on this has a pretty beat up chuck. The teeth are bent, so when you get it unthreaded about halfway, it really starts jamming up and doesn't run true, and that's actually due to the bent teeth. That can happen. If you're storing drills, generally speaking, you want to retract the teeth so they're inside the chuck. That way, if the drill gets dropped or anything bangs against the chuck, you're not hitting right against the teeth. But we'll go ahead and pull this thing down. Probably will keep the power cord, though, for other Milwaukee tools. I have so many half-inch drills. Really don't need this one. I'll start off with the chuck. This is 11/16. You need a thin wrench to get in there. The Milwaukee right angle drill attachments do come with special wrenches, but you'll need a thin wrench to get in there. Even this thin New Britain barely fits. Seen chucks really get jammed on. Sometimes they're so jammed on, people, put an Allen, remove the center screw, put an Allen wrench in there and hit it. I've run into several tools where the chucks, particularly like newer Porter cable half-inch drills, where the chucks would be on there super tight. So tight that you'll either bend the spindle or strip out the gears using impacts or the Allen wrench method. And one of these days I'm going to make a video on how you properly cut a Jacobs chuck off, how you take it apart while it's on the tool, and then actually cut it and split it to actually remove jammed chucks. Remove the chuck screw. This time it's a 3/16. Of course, chuck screws are counter-threaded, so it would be righty-loosey. And many times on older tools, these screws tend to be actually loose, just like this one. No problem to remove that. Now we'll see if we can't get the chuck off. We'll see how this one is. The first thing I'll do is just use this Allen socket and see if I can't get it to come off with just this little impact wrench. And if that doesn't work out, I'll move to putting an Allen wrench in and actually standing on it. If I can even get this chuck tight enough around this with my hand. I think that's okay. We'll see if we can't just knock it off like this. Oh, come on. And usually just that quick, if it doesn't want to come off, then you know you're in for a little bit more of a battle. This is a better option, just actually having one wrench, setting it up to where the other wrench is pretty close to it so you can have it on the ground and actually have your body weight on it. Kind of step on that. You'll want to support yourself. We'll see if this will get it loose. Definitely not. And this is one of those I actually did end up damaging my wrench just trying to get that off of there. And I probably even should have done that for the video, because I actually ended up splaying this out and ruining this old New Britain wrench, which is actually kind of frustrating for me. That's been my experience. Probably a third of all drills I've come down to, you break and ruin tools trying to remove the chucks. They just get rusted on, stuck. This little hex here, the biggest problem with it is there just isn't enough space to get any kind of a significant wrench, and thin wrenches just don't have enough meat. This is a situation where you're either going to risk destroying the gearbox trying to get the chuck off, and even if you do get it off, you're going to cause flat spots in the gears, and really it's going to have to be, you pull the collar off and you put some slits in it with a Dremel, and then you use a cold chisel to split it open to remove it. Really one of the most frustrating things about drill chucks, and obviously one of the reasons I'm not going to keep this tool, because I'm not going to go through all that time for an old Milwaukee drill. Or I lost enough money as it is on the drill and the broken wrench. So let's go ahead and take the rest of it apart. I will keep that screw there. We'll go ahead and get the brush holder back out of here. These are always kind of recalcitrant and a little bit tight. Just got to kind of work it out with a screwdriver here. And I will, of course, keep the brushes, because those will be handy for a variety of tools. Can't count the many times. I've probably had 20 or 30 half-inch drills over the years where it's been exactly like that. I've just had to eat the cost just because the chucks are just super jammed on there. It takes like a half an hour or an hour of work to, probably close to half an hour of constant work just to cut the chuck off, and then you're stuck with the expense of replacing the chuck. A genuine half-inch Jacobs chuck, half-inch 20 threads, is going to set you back like $50 or more. Most times that's just well above the value of the tool. I did forget to mention that on these newer ones, this screw right here can tend to strip out, and they actually do include a spare screw in addition to the other, in addition to the spare brushes. So that's always kind of nice. Tell you the truth, I knew better than even trying to remove the chuck on something like this. Really, if you just use a normal impact and the chuck doesn't want to unscrew, then you're in for a world of hurt. And most drills just are not worth it. If you can't get the chuck off, toss the drill. Because that, you know, the value, just the cost of a replacement chuck is the cost of buying a used unit that's in good working condition. So we'll take out these gearbox screws, pull off the gearbox. I do save these screws because they're always kind of handy. Got some paint off of there. Come on now. Give it a few little love taps. And there we are. We do have one pin here that helps secure and prevent the gearbox from rotating. And it is all helical cut. Simple double reduction gearbox. And I believe this is original grease. And Milwaukee really does put tons of grease in their tools. It's one of their hallmarks. And to reduce leaking, we can see that they use a gasket around the gearbox. So Milwaukee tries to do, you know, what they can, but not everything's always perfect. Then we'll use a screwdriver and just pry off the diaphragm. Half the time when you pry off the diaphragm, the motor will come with it, so you always want to remove the brushes first, but sometimes the diaphragm itself will just pop off. In this case, nope, we'll just get the whole motor. We can see we have a rubber isolator. That does help reduce vibration and noise, but what I've seen about these rubber isolators is when the bearing starts to seize up, then it'll spin inside this rubber isolator and can actually generate smoke, and you'll think the tool's ruined, but really it's just a seized bearing, and you can get a new isolator and a new bearing and fix it right up. Part of the deal is that if the bearing does stick and start spinning, at least it's not spinning down in this recess in the housing, which is much more expensive and difficult to replace. To get the bearings out of these, if you were really nice and you would set this all up on a press, supporting it evenly along this flange, and then press on the spindle to remove it evenly. Many times it's just lightly stuck, and you can just kind of hold the gearbox, give it a little bit of tension, and tap on the end of the spindle. And it will pop out just like that. Part of the key is holding it so you're actually putting a little bit of tension on there, and it actually will work its way out pretty good. The bearings, they don't seem too bad. Nylon fan. These high density fans they use because they do generate a greater pressure differential, but one of the issues is the fins are just so close together that they can get clogged pretty easily. As far as the build quality of the motor, we can already see they went to folded contacts. There's no extra wrapping or additional protection around the armature here. Quite a bit of balancing there and there, so the balance was okay, but not super great on this motor. But this is part of the era where Milwaukee tools were getting a little bit more cheapified. They cut corners where they could, but they still stay true to Milwaukee, as we can see in here. We'll almost see these are actually needle bearings, so this whole tool is all ball and needle bearing, and that is still a hallmark of Milwaukee. Is they cut corners and gotten cheaper over the years, but certain things they wouldn't, or essentially they would only go so low, and one of those things is still putting in plenty of grease. So the other thing is trying to use as many rolling bearings as they can. Many Milwaukee tools you will find rolling bearings in places that other manufacturers will use sleeve bearings. Now just for the part with the electrics, pulling apart the handle here. Not everyone's sticking to the bit here. There we go. We'll do a little prying here. One of the weird things is the handles are designed for the quick release cords don't have a setup to have a cord pinch or strain relief, so it's very difficult to actually modify these to have a standard cord. Now we can see inside here. This is one of the things Milwaukee does. There's a little T10 screw, but this is the little chopper circuit that makes the variable speed work. Since there's a little bit of it left, we know that the circuit is good, It's just a sliding variable potentiometer inside this unit right here. And see, they didn't put any bellows or even like a little seal in there. And that's why this thing ultimately has failed. There's grit inside there. We'll try taking apart this switch. Let's go and pull apart all these. Only a few Milwaukee is by far the most common to do this. They did this on most of their very higher end variable speed tools, that they had this separate external circuit mounted right in the airflow path. From their sawzalls to many of their drills. We'll unplug these wires here from, what did we lose there? Oh, that was another screw. I had already loosened the 2 screws for the field. Get these brush screw or brush terminals off. Get this out of here. There we go. And how is this thing connected? Interesting. I wonder if we just push this out. Let me take a look here. Interesting, this little custom part, because this is the ground that connects up to the gearbox. That's why these plastic drills still have grounding, is if you drill into something, the gearbox is still electrified. And so this is just a special rod. Ground wire comes and connects up to it right there. And it's kind of an interesting piece if I can pull it out. Interesting custom little part, a little rounded metal rod with a little tang on it to connect a connector. I thought that was kind of a neat little custom part. Let's see if we can't get this field out of here. Wow, lost some parts. There's the trigger lock, and this is the field, all it is. Let's see if they put... so they did lacquer it, not much, but at least there's enough to keep the wires from wanting to vibrate loose. There's all of our connectors. That one's interesting. It has like an extension on it, probably so that it could reach up, and so you could attach the 2 wires from the top side, because of course it has this custom molding for the easy replacement brushes. That's all there really is for the field. There's a couple of windings, not particularly thick, and it's not a dual field. Like a skill saw will have a winding like this, and they'll have a second winding for a dual field. It's really rare for motors to do that because of the additional expense. It's really done like on skill saws, because they experience very, very high loads near their ratings for long durations of time. And then we can just pop out this ground wire here. And all we have left is a couple of brush holders. Excuse me, those aren't even holders. Those are just the little plugs that the brushes connect to. I don't know if I can get it out with this screwdriver. We can. And see, it's just a little piece of metal that pokes through there, and then the brush, quick release brushes, just plug into that. And then of course on this tang is where your trigger wires connect to. Let me clean this up and we'll take a closer look at this trigger unit. Anyway, getting these wires out, many of these have, like this style, are weird spring-loaded connectors. And like on here, what we have is we have some tiny little holes. And those little holes are for you to put a little tool down in there to try to push the little spring lock so you can release the wires. They're always kind of annoying, but manufacturers like to use them because they are reliable. And they're super simple and easy for assembly. You just got to press kind of hard to get the wires out of there. We got all those wires out. Now on this top side, there isn't those special holes, and on these it's always annoying because you really have to actually just put the needle right next to the wire in order to release the little tang, just like so. This does have the reverse built into the top of the switch. It just doesn't have the electronics because those are separate. And this is the variable speed circuit right here, which is something I'll probably keep for parts for other tools. Now this housing here is not really designed. I mean, it's rated for 8 amps, which is more than enough. It's a Tyco, which is actually not a bad brand. And you can see it just shows that it just has a resistor in it, no other electronics. It's more of a permanent assembled design. Let's see if we can't force it apart just to take a look inside. May not be the easiest thing, but we'll see. Oh, it looks like we could snap it apart and then back together again. So that's actually kind of a good sign. This isn't super cooperative. There we go. And then we lost a couple of springs. Surprisingly enough, this has 2 different springs in it. It actually had an external spring right here in addition to this spring. And I did lie. They did have an O-ring in there. So they did try to seal the switch. It just wasn't good enough. So here is the 2 little contacts that rub, that provide your variable speed. And what are those riding against? These contacts down here. Then there's side contacts for your variable speed. Trying to get, and that would be these little sliders here. So these little sliders are interacting with this to provide your variable speed, and that's what really needs to be cleaned up. And then down here, what ends up happening is these, when you go full trigger, these just come into contact. I'm not exactly sure how, but the reason you'll have a switch where the variable speed goes out, but it still works at full speed, is because when you're at full speed, it's just like an on-off switch. It's just the variable speed has been added to the on-off switch. So the on-off portion is only when you're all the way back, where the variable speed is just up front. And how that works, even though the spacing looks odd, is when you're in the variable speed, you're going from out here. This is your variable speed portion right through here, and then this will bump up, and then the last portion of the trigger is actually just a flat out on-off switch. And so this is really what the issue is, and we can see that those pads do look pretty warm. You could clean those up and use some electronic cleaner, see if you couldn't get the switch working again. So at least there is potential to service it. Anyway, that was kind of the deal with the teardown. I am disappointed I ruined a new Britain wrench. The only one of those I ever saw. Live and learn. Even for videos, not worth destroying tools that you do care about. Only worth destroying tools that you don't care about. Anyway, I really appreciate everybody who's been watching and subscribing. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. Until next time, Catus Maximus out.